And thank you for joining us on PM Express. My guest tonight is Osechi Mensah-Bonsu. He is the Majority Leader and is also the Minister for Parliamentary Affairs. And I'm delighted that he could join me. There's so many issues that Parliament is grappling with, especially at the time when the nation is faced with its biggest crisis as long as we can remember. And he's been at the forefront of trying to get Parliament to play its role in helping this country win the war against the coronavirus, but also many other things that will be important in the lead up to the December 7 elections. And so we are grateful that he could sit with us again to have a conversation about these issues of importance to you as you look up to Parliament to deliver its side of the bargain. Thank you very much, Mr. Chief Mensah-Bonsu, for joining us again on PM Express.
Thank you once again for having me.
How are you faring in the midst of COVID-19 personally? I'm interested because everybody has a personal story when it comes to that.
Well, I'm good. I have to work extra hard, and that really is tasking sometimes. Sometimes my family complains that I have scant time to be with them. But what else can you do? I think we must be playing our parts individually and as a collective to get the nation moving.
In what ways has this virus affected you in terms of the way it's changed? You recently, and this is one of those light ones, there was a picture of you in the floor of Parliament and you were wearing your face mask.
On my forehead.
On your forehead. And, you know, I saw the picture and I was like, oh, goodness, you all have to get used to it. Did you see that picture yourself?
I did.
Okay, what was your reaction?
Oh, really? I attempted to speak through it, and it was terrible. Okay. Really, everything was feeding into my nose, and it was most uncomfortable. And in any event, my colleagues were also not hearing me. You know, that particular mask is different. So I had to, you know, situate it elsewhere. I first pulled it beneath my chin, and I could see that it was there, still trying to migrate to my mouth. So then I said, okay, let me play, you know, a night watchman, or perhaps a miner. That's why I put it on my forehead. And that liberated me to speak to colleagues and be heard. Unfortunately, I think it attracted a lot of comments, some positive, some negative. But I took it in my stride because I thought it was nothing really hard.
Is it easier now wearing it?
Well, we're all managing.
Okay, you're getting used to it?
We must. Yeah. It's uncomfortable because it's not being part of our culture, it's not being part of our training. So even the lighter ones, we're still quite a bit uncomfortable. And sometimes when we try to speak through it, like we're sitting now, we are not using it because we want it to be heard by the populace. And if you're wearing the mask, perhaps you have to be repeating yourself often. So it's difficult, but I guess for this reason and for this occasion, we have distanced ourselves socially and even physically. And we think that it should be good.
Have you done your tests? As we heard, MPs are going to mandatory tests. Have you done yours?
I've done mine. I've submitted myself on 2 occasions.
2?
Yes, but this one that we're asking members of Parliament to submit to, I haven't done so.
Okay.
I haven't done so because the second one that I did, the results just came the Thursday before the Tuesday when Parliament resumed. Okay. So I thought it wasn't necessary to do that. I was told that when they finished, they will come back for a mop-up. So I'm just standing by for the mop-up, by which time it will be 2 weeks, I think about 15 days after the latest one that I did. So 15 days, I guess, will be sufficient enough time span for me to resubmit myself.
If we did that, then that would be the 3rd time.
That will be the 3rd time. You see, ideally, if you test negative, it doesn't mean that you are out of the woods, right? I'm told, and I want to believe same to be true, that if you get infected and come out, you then build some resilience, sufficient antibodies to withstand a reinvasion the next few months. Because the disease, we are not too sure of its character and form. We are even being told that it started mutation. So once you contract and come out, you know, your resilience level builds up. It's like you taking a vaccine, and it will take a while for the disease, once it comes the second time, to be able to conquer you again. I'm not too sure of when, but at least you can be sure that perhaps the next 6 months you'll be fortified. But if you test negative It doesn't necessarily mean that, it means you have not contracted it. It may not necessarily mean that there is resilience and you have fought against it, which is why, ideally, if you test negative, maybe after 3 weeks or perhaps maximum one month, you must resubmit, which is what I intend to do.
The first two, what was the result?
Well, it's like a vote, it's secret. But of course, if it was otherwise, perhaps you don't see me here.
So I guess the answer then was negative on both occasions.
Draw your own conclusions. It's supposed to be between me and those of them who tested me. As I said, the acid test, if I had tested otherwise, perhaps you don't see me here.
Obviously, because it's so contagious, if it's positive, you will necessarily have to isolate from Parliament.
That's the obvious implication.
And obviously we wouldn't be seeing you sitting with us.
That's the
here.
obvious implication.
In fact, you wouldn't even be that cruel to expose us.
Absolutely. I must not only protect myself, I must protect my family, I must protect my neighbors, including you.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, that's the thing about leading by example, I guess. Is it true then, yesterday, you were forced to address a press conference? Rumors started speculating that 2 of your members and some members of staff of Parliamentary Service had been positive in the testing that is happening. Is it true?
I don't know. I don't know, because as part of the protocol, as part of the arrangement that we did, we sounded that the results, negative or positive, should be communicated to those tested and those tested only. Even leaders should be kept out of it. So as I sit here, if anybody has tested positive, I don't know. If anybody has tested negative, I don't know. So cell phone numbers were taken, and some of them even gave their email addresses. So the communication is via these media. So they get to them, that is if anybody has tested or tests positive. And then, you know, the results will be announced to the person. Immediately, they'll contact the person, and the necessary advice will be given, and the necessary routine then will also have to be followed. So that is what we have done, the system that Parliament has put in place. And I want to believe that if anybody, including members of Parliament, staff, the regular staff, the auxiliary staff, the officers that we work with, including the police, the fire officers, and even journalists who are here with us. We want all of them to submit, because we are here as one family, right? What I don't like about this whole business is this. At the very outset, some members gave strong indication that no, Parliament, we don't know what may happen. And some people may decide to politicize the outcomes. So they said they will not submit themselves. They'd rather go outside and do it. We were insisting that everybody should submit, because we thought in that case, we'll be able to finish up with everybody who is here. Some of them insisted that no, they wouldn't submit themselves, because Parliament, they cannot vouch for the confidentiality of Parliament. If it is true, what story is playing out is true, they will stand vindicated. And that's the danger. I'm not too sure that the journalist who says that, who is now saying that he has credible sources, right? Yesterday I'm told when the Director of Public Affairs confronted him, he said, well, he was passing by and he heard people. Did you authenticate it? No. So I said that could only be speculation, right? And I said, I described it as speculative journalism. I'm told after, he now says that, oh, he has credible evidence and that he has spoken to those people. I'm not too sure. But you see, we must be very professional in the performance of our functions to protect society and protect all of us.
Aren't you entitled to know, though?
Come again?
Aren't you entitled to know the status of our members of Parliament if they test positive? Or
you have a medical history. Do you want to expose your medical history to the rest of the world?
I'm a private citizen.
Not entirely so.
I am.
You are a leader to the extent that the position that you occupy, you are supposed to demonstrate leadership. But in your own small way, you are a leader. But medical history is medical history. Unless there is an arrangement between you and the medical officers, nobody, absolutely nobody, has the right to expose your back.
regardless of whether you are in service of the people, as a public servant, a member of parliament?
I want to believe that. Because, look, we have, the other day, the President speaking to the nation cited the case of the Honorable Papoose Yankoma, His Excellency Papoose Yankoma. He's outside there in UK representing Ghana's interest. Do you think if he were to be in Ghana, would have mentioned him?
What's the difference?
The difference is that here in Ghana, the culture is different.
But Papoose Yankoma is a Ghanaian.
I say here in Ghana.
He's just changed the jurisdiction.
He changed jurisdiction.
And
there,
he's
secluded and excluded from the rest of us, which is why the President had to use that example. But if he were here in Ghana, the circumstance would be different. So you see, we must contextualize it. And I'm saying that if the person decides to come out, step out, to say that I've contracted it, by God's grace, I've come out triumphant, it's real. To demonstrate that it's real, we must protect ourselves. That's something else. But that would depend on the person himself or herself, right? Remember what this young man who came out to show leadership in order to tell Ghanaians that we shouldn't take it for granted, it's real. What ordeal he and his family are having to go through? Certainly not the best. So we must purge ourselves of this stigmatization and allow the system to flow. Once we're able to get it right, I believe people will feel obliged to do this. But I cannot, even if I knew the circumstances of a member of parliament or a staff of parliament, I can't step out there without his own, concession to expose that person. It would be fatal.
This raises a bigger conversation that we started having when our president, Atamils, got sick. But it's a bigger policy conversation then. It's sort of a die down, but it's about whether we're entitled to know the health of our leaders, especially when it affects the ability to represent us and to do the job we put them there to do. So in this case, a member of parliament, if he tests positive, he will necessarily must isolate for at least 14 days and possibly more, which means he cannot in that period be doing his job. The argument then goes, if that is the case, then his constituents are entitled to know that he can do the job because of this reason for 14 days or plus. Then of course they put them there, they put him there, then they at least know that the man I've employed has an issue and can do the job. What's your take on that policy conversation?
The issues involved may be a bit different. The argument is that to the extent that maybe you have a precedent, and the Constitution provides in the event of a precedent that if the person suffers some incapacitation, it may be a cause for impeachment. So for the position of the president is different. One could expand it a bit.
So for the president, we are entitled to know?
No, I'm saying one could expand it a bit. Yes, you may say that the president he suffers from some incapacitation medically. Even there, you have to be circumspect in relating to the details. I'm saying the reason is he is the primus of the nation. And second, and most important, and that's where perhaps one could extend the argument, is that the state has to spend on the medical bills of the president, of the medical bills of the vice president, of the medical bills, perhaps of those of them stated in Article 71. If that is the case, and the argument is that because we have to spend, we need to know the condition of that person. Is he capable? Is he not capable? This ailment that has afflicted, is it curable or is it not curable? If it's curable, and you say that, well, because he suffered maybe diarrhea, and for that reason he's not able to attend to work on 3 days or 3 occasions, and because of that he must be impeached, or the person is not stable, that really will be something else. So you see, don't let us mix up the rationalization, because they are completely different.
Yesterday, the Speaker had cause to chastise some of your colleagues who he believes were not complying with the mandatory directive to get tested. He had to be threatened sanctions. Is it that bad that some members are really hesitating and don't want to do this?
I told you
the concerns they had because of
the concerns some of them had.
Secrecy.
Yes. And I said to us a few moments ago that what is playing out may appear to vindicate the position of those of them. But having said that, we are here as one family. We know the spread of the ailment. So if one submits and the other does not submit, right, the one who does not submit imperils the life of the one who has submitted after the person comes out, right? So it's important that all of us at the same time submit, so that if we are found to be healthy, then we are sure in our mind that we could be very fraternal to one another. You came and then you airboat for me to touch you. If you had tested positive, you would not even do that. Right? Yeah. If I also had, I also not do that. Of course, I will not even be here in the first place to talk to you. So we must protect ourselves, protect society as well. So the Speaker's issue was that all of us must submit. Here in Parliament, the total number of staff is in excess of 1,200. The MPs, the regular staff, the auxiliary staff, including service persons and research officers and so on, plus the officers that we're working with, plus journalists who come here on a daily basis, right? We are one family. And if it touches one, it touches the rest of us, which is why we should, all of us, submit. And once we are sure that we are out of the woods.
It's moral persuasion. Nobody can compel any MP to do it.
Well,
the Speaker even threatens sanctions.
But you cannot also endanger the life of others. You have rights, but your rights end at your doorstep. You cannot endanger somebody's life and say that you have rights not to comply. You don't have any right to endanger the life of others.
But yes, you've well said, but you still cannot compel an MP to take the test.
Is a balancing act, right? You cannot compel an MP to submit to a test, but you can't compel him not to willingly infect others.
That is if you know he's infected.
That is if you know.
Yeah, but he doesn't want to be tested in the first place. He has
and
the
you are
right
imperiling your own life and the life of your family, right? You are imperiling your own life and the right of your family as well. So I'm not too sure that we should be splitting hairs over this. Otherwise, somebody will say that, well, I'm distressed with life. Let me go and commit suicide is my life. And we should take it like that.
I'm asking because clearly some of them, from what the Speaker said, they disagree with the approach. And Speaker threatening sanctions. Yesterday, in fact, someone on MP said, the Speaker can't do anything. He has no power to impose any sanction in this particular matter.
The Speaker has a right to protect the life of those of them who would want to submit to order in the House. We want to be sure that you are not at risk and you are not also risking the lives of others. Should that be bad?
So if you don't do it?
Well, we have to think through. As of yet, if you ask me what happens if the person doesn't submit, I will not be able to give you a cast in stone recommendation, because all of us will have to think through.
We are ready to do whatever it takes to get everybody to get tested.
What is lawful?
That's a deep one, actually. It's pregnant with a lot of meaning. Almost threatening that they will throw the law at you. Throw the law book.
I'm saying that whatever is lawful
will be done to compel you to test.
Will be done to ensure that people submit.
That is Chairman Sabonsu. So we're going to take a break. When we return, we will talk about something that Chairman Sabonsu, having been in Parliament for this long, is very used to. Ex-Gratia, because it's come up again. He's had cause to talk about it. It's generated some controversy. Briefly, And then we'll go to the vexed matter of the voters register, because in Parliament, the Parliament that he obviously superintends as both Majority Leader and also the Minister of Parliamentary Affairs, there is a CI that's counting the days and may mature very soon. And that will give the EC the power to go ahead to compile a new voter register. We all know how that has become one of those most divisive in this country. We'll get his thoughts on that. Stay with us. And thank you for staying with us. Che Mensah-Bonsu is the Majority Leader and Minister for Parliamentary Affairs as my guest. Mr. Che Mensah-Bonsu, the age-old controversy of Ex-Gratia came up recently. A petition that has been filed to the Chief of Staff by members of Parliament, some of them present, some of them old, majority of them old members of Parliament who are no longer in Parliament, who say they are old and outstanding arrears over many, many years. And they are asking that they be paid an amount. Some estimate is in the region of 29 million cedis or so. The Auditor General has a position on that because he was asked to audit the claim. He says you're not entitled to it. You obviously spoke last week and said you disagree with that position. Why do you disagree exactly?
Well, what was the basis of the Auditor General saying that members are not entitled? The basis was that the recommendations of the Chinri-Hesse Committee were not approved by Parliament.
Were they?
So on what account were they paid something? If it wasn't approved, on what account, on what basis were members paid? Whatever they were paid. So, you see, that is why I'm saying I disagree with him. The premise, this whole issue...
To the question, did Parliament approve?
Yes, we did.
Okay.
Yes, we did. And in any event, Parliament, when it comes to the approval process, does not approve of the recommendations contained in the report in respect of members of Parliament. We don't. So if you say that members of Parliament did not approve and on account of that, you think that you are not entitled. You are wrong. Because it's the President who does approval for the recommendations in respect of members of Parliament. Right? Now this whole thing blew out when post-Kufuor, the matter, in fact, the whole thing started with the refurbishment of an office for use by President Kufuor, former President Kufuor. And then there was this agitation, contrived agitation by some so-called Ga youth, indicating that they will not allow Kufuor to use a facility on Ga land. It was a most outrageous message they were sending to Ghanaians. But then it suited somebody at the time, so it was allowed. Then in the midst of the confusion, because that came out of the recommendations of the Chinri-Hesse Committee, in the midst of the confusion, my own colleague and former former minority leader, Alban, stepped out to say that as far as he was concerned, the report was not approved by Parliament. That triggered this whole brouhaha. I was asked, I said no, it was approved by Parliament. Indeed and in truth, the Honorable Bagbin was not in the chamber when we did the approval that day. He had stepped out with Honorable Ibrahim Hosseidu, who was the then majority leader, to attend to the business of the then transition team. But the two of them were not in the chamber. I was the deputy leader. I stepped in, and then we held the meeting to approve of the report. That meeting was held in a closed sitting, and then we did the approval. Unfortunately, after the approval process, the documentation on it, we couldn't trace it subsequently. And however it appeared, nobody knows. Whether it was deliberate, nobody knows. But I remember that the report that was given to me that day, what we did, because we did not allow in that closed sitting, as our laws provide, would not allow any person from the clerk's office, not the clerk, not any of the deputy clerks, to sit in. We, the members of parliament, did it ourselves, and our rules so permit. So I jotted down a few things, the nodal issues regarding the approval, and put it in that document. So when the brouhaha blew out, and the committee that was constituted by Professor Mills, the Ishmael Yamson Committee, came up to consider it. Dr. Tony Edu, who was part of that group, came to me and requested for the documentation. I gave it to him, and even the nodal issues that I had, jotted down, which was to be the notes for Parliament. He took it to the committee. What I forgot to do was to have done a copy of it. Tony Edu took it, and I think when he finished with it, I want to believe that he forgot to resubmit it. And later when I demanded that he brought it back to me, I think it became difficult for him to trace it, right? But clearly, the report was approved. And indeed, the Ishmael Yamson Committee invited Bagbin, who had become the majority leader then, and I had changed colors and character, to the then minority leader. The two of us, they invited. And when we went there, Bagbin confirmed that the document was approved.
That committee was reviewing the work of Chief Justice Committee.
Yes. Which they had no authority to do anyway. They had no authority to do that.
Auditor General says Yamson's committee concluded
they had no authority to have reviewed that committee.
They rejected.
They had no authority in the first place.
Why?
Because it's the work of a different regime, by occasion by a different president. And a new president cannot go and review that report.
The new president still has the power under the Constitution to set up a committee to determine your benefits. To determine the benefits of the Article 71 office holders beginning his tenure. He cannot go back. So that was the position some of us adopted. And I said, indeed and in truth, to speak for Bagbin, when we went there, he said no. He more or less implicitly agreed that no, he made a mistake in coming out to say that the report was not approved. And he admitted that he was not in the chamber that day, which is why, because he was not privy to it, he came out to say this. But upon reflection, he concedes that the report was approved. He stated this at the Ishmael Yamson Committee. And yet they still concluded by saying, by rejecting.
And that is what they came to, the determination they came to.
Auditor
we disagree with them.
Makes a constitutional point that you got 70% of the amount. He says the constitutional provision makes the president the final determinant of what you get paid after the committee's work. Instead, the quotes a constitution that says that the president shall determine on the recommendations. And his point is that it is the president. And so the 70% that you got in the president's estimation, despite what the recommendations were, was what you're entitled to, and that you cannot ask for more when the president has said what you deserve is what you actually have received.
Again, another point of disagreement. The president is the president of that regime and not the president subsequent.
So there's a constitutional point that
otherwise, no president can set up the committee. Otherwise, no president can set up a committee.
Did former President Kufuor implement before he left?
He started just because, you see, that report unfortunately delayed. The lady who came, he was a professional, and he wanted to really establish real benchmarks. And the good thing is that thereafter, that indeed has become the template. That indeed has been, that report that they said could not be implemented has now become the template. Mrs. Chinrihesi wanted to do something to really provide us with the relevant ingredients in establishing the emoluments of the Article 71 office holders. So the point is, and I keep repeating myself, that President Mills had no authority to have established that committee in the first place to review that committee's report. And he had no business saying that, well, I can only pay 70%.
You got 70%, isn't that enough?
You are salaried, aren't you?
Yes.
So if you are giving 70% of your salary, that would be okay, because it's near 100%.
Well, because it's coming from a private man's pocket.
That will have
I'll demand my fair share 100%. Absolutely.
You will have to have some conversation. That is, we are in a corona environment. Maybe your chief may perhaps invite you to say that we are in difficult times. Private business is about taking a nosedive. Can we agree that maybe for this month, about 90% I'll be able to afford? You will have to seek your permission. You have to enter into some negotiation with you. Shouldn't that be the case? He can't sit somewhere and determine that this should be it. Because in your appointment letter, the terms and conditions are established. He cannot violate it without your consent.
So if it was 100%, you get 100%, not 70%.
The point is, if the state is saying that we don't have the wherewithal, you have to engage, right? You have to engage. And you see, strictly speaking, that provision in the Constitution makes it imperative on the president, before he starts drawing his salary, before members of parliament start drawing their salary, to be informed by that committee's report. What it means is that technically, the moment the president is sworn in, he should put together that team. No president can do that. Other than that, people may even raise hue and cry. Oh, this president is a self-seeker. He's appointed, he's sworn in, and the next thing, he's appointing a committee regarding his salaries and emoluments. People may say that, oh, the man has come because of salary. The president, every one of them is sensitive to this. So, labor issues, the person will want to satisfy the labor market and ensure that everything is in tranquility. Everything, by and large, is settled before he comes to look at his own. So usually what happens is that what salary the previous parliament was drawing will be the salary that they will grant to the new dispensation, pending the time that this one will be established. And when they have done so, you will usually see that it will attract some arrears for members of parliament. And then that will also feed into the computation of gratuity. What I know you have been referring to as Ex-Gratia, right? So that is it.
Is this a fight based on principle for you, or is it a fight for the money?
Really, honestly, my mind was not even on it until the forum of former members of parliament came together and probed into the matter. And it came to the fore that, oh, we have this 30% outstanding. And if that 30% had been paid, it would have affected the computation of that amount, right? And the gratuity that was paid to them would have been upped by some level. And I guess they had some accountants to do the computation.
How much was it?
I don't really remember, honestly.
Do you know how much you are owed yourself?
I don't honestly know, because as I said, I was already thinking about it, except that, indeed and in truth, because I belong to that era, if amount should be paid, certainly I also stand to benefit. How much it is.
Doesn't need the money, do you?
Who says?
You're well-to-do.
Really?
Are you not?
I didn't know that you know my assets and liabilities.
Oh, you look like well-to-do. You have a big office. You drive a big car. You've been in Parliament for a long time. This certainly must, James Ambusu must be a man of no means.
Is Parliament a gold mine?
You tell me. I'm not in
Parliament to be a gold mine. You see the circumstances of.
So you're not rich?
By no means. By no means. What is your yardstick of measuring richness in society?
I have none, but it's just a perception.
What's your yardstick of measuring?
You
don't have any yardstick.
You must drive a V8.
Which is for Parliament.
You must own at least a couple of homes, and I'm pretty sure you do. You must have a big office. You do, like quite a nice office. You have all that. That must make you rich.
Before coming to Parliament, let me state this fact because people know. Before coming to Parliament, I had 7 houses at various stages of construction.
7 houses at various stages of completion?
Yes. Okay. I had not honestly completed any one of them at a time. But that was what I was worth before coming to Parliament. When I came, I had to sell some to complete some. Right? That's a circumstance that I find myself in. But it's all in the service of God and country.
But there certainly must have been more blessings post that.
Well, I wouldn't say I'm contradicting you because you see, at least before I came here, I entered Parliament. I was operating from my own small corner. Nobody knew, not many people knew Eche Zabunzu. Today, at least, you register strongly on the horizon. That is not quantifiable. So, to me, that is something. You cannot measure that in monetary terms. If we were to measure that in monetary terms, that would be significant. That would be huge. And of course, it makes you rich in society to the extent that more or less you become a role model for people. If you have to measure the richness of persons, applying the yardstick, certainly a certain Chairman Sabonsu would register strongly. But in terms of physicality, that is physical worth, you would see that Chairman Sabonsu may not measure much.
This is just curiosity. It killed a cat, but maybe I have 9 lives. Before you came in, you had 7 homes, various stages of completion. Now, how many homes do you have completed?
Well, there are some that are jointly developed. So I may not even say that they strictly belong to me, right? But at least I have a facility in Accra, which I had 3 structures in Accra. I sold and developed 2 out of it. One is for some I've given it out to some children that I have. I got into the production process when I migrated to Zimbabwe.
When you say production, I'm just curious.
I have two grandchildren.
Okay.
Should I say Gandangme children?
Okay.
Right. The relationship.
Well, I didn't know that. That's an interesting. I'm Ga myself, so I'm just curious. But you have a Ga blood in you, or you have a Ga commander in chief.
Oh, no.
You don't have a Ga commander in chief, but you have grandchildren.
Yes, I'm saying that I went into a relationship.
Okay.
It didn't last really.
Okay.
That was when I migrated to Zimbabwe, and it didn't last. I really wanted to continue, but the lady was not interested. She wanted me to come and stay.
She broke your heart.
She wanted me to come and stay permanently in Zimbabwe, and I was urging her that we should come back. She was not interested to come back. Now she's relocated though. So she and the kids are there, and I have a family. So I have 1 house in Kumasi. So that's it. So then another one, my first kids, that I've also given that one to them. So that's it.
So certainly, Chairman Sabonsu doesn't need the 30%.
I have responsibilities, if not to my family, to my constituents. There are many needy people in society. So you want to take it so that you can do good? Well, the little that I have, I've learned to share. So if that will help me to expand my horizon as far as that is concerned, that is good. Sometimes, I will tell you, sometimes people come to you with all manner of pleas. And sometimes you satisfy them, you go home, and you see that you are in want. But you see, as far as I'm concerned, ultimately you are able to overcome But there are some of them that if not assessed, they may crumble. So you may have to attend to them first, even before you come to yourself.
Finally on this, you said it started by the former members of parliament, this petition. How bad is it? Because I hear stories about how some of them become really financially challenged after parliament, that you can't even recognize them when you see them, and they're beaten by life. Is that
Absolutely.
Is it that bad?
Absolutely.
Why is that?
Because, you see...
So they become poor?
Pauperized. Pauperized. And that should tell you that parliament is not a gold mine. Some of them, in fact, many of them, I shouldn't say many of them, most of them, they leave parliament, especially the non-professionals. Even with the professionals, you are a lawyer, you've come to parliament for 12 years, you've lost all your clients. Then you migrate outside, okay, I want to be a consultant. Who will be consulting you? Especially if your party has lost out. If you're a medical officer, right, you've lost out. Your clients are no longer there. And the non-professionals is a bit really hard on them. A teacher who came to parliament, maybe he's not even got into retirement age before he exits. It's difficult for the teaching service, the Ghana Education Service, to re-engage because they think that you are politically exposed. You may come to corrupt the system. So taking you back becomes a difficulty for them, right? For practical reasons. Them, are helped back into the system, but not everybody has an opportunity. And also, if maybe the person comes and then in exiting, he is more or less retiring. What happens? Who takes care? So it's a real challenge. And he migrates outside, he exits. The next thing you hear is that that person has sold his vehicle. The next thing you hear is that he's coming, he's calling you, please do something for me, otherwise it's bad.
Is that bad?
I'm telling you.
So some of your, because you have the privilege of being here for long, so you've seen a lot of them coming.
I've seen a lot of them. In fact, if I show my phone to you, even yesterday, and it's from all sides.
They still call you?
They still call me from all sides, not only MPP persons who have exited, but NDC guys who have exited. I mean, we are all here as one family. So I know perhaps some member of parliament, former member of parliament belonging to the MPP, perhaps will be calling Haruna Idrisu. Just so as some of them from their side would also be calling.
Asking for what? Handouts?
Asking for survival.
A former member of parliament?
A former member of parliament. Unofficially, when we finish, I can show you a message that came from the other side just yesterday. And I want to believe that I can trust your confidentiality and expose the back of, just so that you see how precarious the situation is. And brother, it's not like people perceive parliament to be. It's not like that at all. There are many people. I remember one MP, a former MPP member of parliament, who came and he served just one term. And when he came, 2-3 years into his stay here, he came one day to confide in me. Then I was a minority leader, and said to me, "Leader," and I'm quoting his words, said, "Maybe Bahano be to me for, I say in the parliament here, and come
to wit, if I was advised, I wouldn't have
absolutely
come to parliament.
I wouldn't have come to parliament." Then I told him, the person that you came to remove and got here, that person happened to be a close friend of mine. If I had come there to advise you.
So some actually regret.
Some actually regret. Many of them regret. Many of them regret. And then he comes here and he realizes that really, this is not the environment that he was thinking parliament is. You know. So, and then...
I mean, very finally, asking for handout is not sustainable. In terms of institutionalizing something for members of parliament, apart from the Ex-Gratia that we know, what's your recommendation? Something that is there that you can access when you...
My recommendation, which is what we were, proposing to the Chiri Hesi Committee, was that this payment of gratuity, as far as I'm concerned, we should have a real look. It's not helpful.
What should replace it?
I should think that we should have a pension scheme for members of parliament. Elsewhere, that's how it is. Elsewhere, that's how it is. Usually, in fact, with the Children Health Committee, they engaged on behalf of members of parliament, myself at the time, and the Honorable John Tia, who was the whip for the minority. At the time I was the whip, I had not migrated to be the deputy leader. So they engaged the two of us on behalf of parliament. And the recommendation that we sent there was that we should initiate this policy. I think the start-off point was the difficulty, whether to start with those of them who had served 2 terms or 3 terms. In some jurisdictions, they begin with people who have served 3 terms. And then in others, 2 terms. If you serve 1 term, it will be difficult to say that the person should benefit from that, right? And because you have to contribute significantly to enable the system to be able to take care of you. And then they graduate it. If you serve for 3 terms and you exit, perhaps they will say that, okay, you should be provided with maybe the equivalent of about 20% of the emolument of an incumbent member of parliament. It may be you served 4 terms, maybe 30–40%. Those of them who have it, usually they cap it somewhere. So if you serve for 10 terms, maybe you still hit the ceiling of about 60% or 70%, right? If you serve 5 terms, maybe it's still 60% or 70%, depending on the agreement. I think that that's the better way about it.
I want to take a break. When we return, I would obviously wrap up by talking about the constitutional instrument that is gathering days in Parliament, and then see what he makes of the voters register conversation, to have or not to have it. Stay with us. Thank you very much for staying with us. My guest is still the majority leader. Mr. James Abonsu, the constitutional instrument that will empower the EC to compile a new voters register is gathering the days. There's a motion that Mahama Yariga has signed, of course with the backing of my minority leader, your colleague, that it should be rejected. Your opinion on that?
Well, the CI is before us, and it's been referred to the Subsidiary Legislation Committee, chaired by a member from the minority party. And as the rules provide, if you don't need to be a member of that committee, if you have strong opinions about that, go to the committee and make your issues. As far as reference to the subsidiary legislation are concerned, there's a measuring rod, well-established yardstick that you have to look at, whether it conflicts with any parent law, whether it conflicts with the Constitution, or whether really the instrument could better be covered in a major law to be brought before Parliament. These are the issues to raise, right? If he has any issue with it, you should go there. I've never seen in my life as a member of Parliament where a matter is referred, a matter is in Parliament, and before the committee submits its report, a member brings a motion to say that the report that is yet to be brought to Parliament should be rejected. I don't see it. There are rules. There are clear rules. And maybe the time is not yet for me to really discuss that matter, because once the person files a motion, the motion must be accepted, admitted by the Speaker before maybe it can
but
be.
At the business committee level, discussing with the minority leader, obviously because he endorsed it, will definitely know his position.
I said to him, he said that he was aware that he had filed a motion. That was last week, Thursday. Yes. That a colleague of his has filed a motion, and he wants us to know when we are going to program it. And I asked him, I'm not the person in charge of the admissibility of questions and motions.
The Speaker is.
It's the Speaker. And are you aware?
Will you support it?
Well,
would you
to the extent that it does not offend our rules. If it offends our rules...
Does it offend the rules?
Well, it's for the Speaker to make the determination.
Just you know this.
It's for the Speaker to make the determination.
But your Speaker will. But in your opinion, does it?
I'm not the Speaker.
I know. So that is a prerogative of the Speaker.
The point is,
you just give me an opinion. What does it?
The point is, if the Speaker does not admit it and says that it offends the rules, the Speaker will be the person to make the determination. If the Speaker says that, well, technically it offends our rules, but maybe the matter they are raising is also germane, I want to admit it, it's for the Speaker to make the determination. Or the Speaker may say that I cannot admit it, and the man will jump out there to address the matter. If he does, then it becomes mature for me to make a pronouncement on it. Okay, but now, if I do, I'll be jumping the cat. Okay, I don't want to do that.
Do you back it or not? Would you back it or not?
I cannot do anything
unless the Speaker.
Because it's like a matter before a court, and Parliament sits to make a determination whilst the matter is pending before court. So I can't do that now.
Quickly on the substance, though. I mean, the CI is gathering the days. Yes. I mean, and I'm curious. This is just a procedural matter. The committee's report is not still before the House. Meanwhile, it's still counting days. The last time I checked, because you've been in Parliament for at least a week now, you probably crossed the 15-day mark. And you're entering to 21. 21, it's supposed to mature.
I'm not too sure that we've done 15. I think before we resumed, we had done about 9.
Okay. And you've been here for 5 days at least? So.
And then last week we did 4.
Yes,
right. So that would be
yesterday.
That would be 13, yes?
Yes, that about.
It was yesterday and today. So we are into our 15th day today.
So, but that's my question then. So you're close to 6 more days to go.
Yeah.
I mean, how does that work? If the report doesn't come and the 21 day reaches?
Given what issues, sometimes referrals are made to the Subsidiary Legislation Committee and they don't come within reports.
Okay.
And if they don't come within reports,
and 21 days comes,
it becomes law.
Okay.
Sometimes they come with laws, with reports to address certain issues, maybe the lateness of it and the fact that maybe they thought that 1 or 2 things could have been better done in the instrument, and maybe to recommend that once it passes, perhaps subsequent to it, there should be another one to improve on it, and so on and so forth. They do these things. So let's await the report from the committee.
It excludes the birth certificate. It excludes the voter's ID for the birth certificate, but it recognizes passport and the Ghana card. You don't get a passport without a birth certificate. I mean, that appears to me like a flawed logic. If you are rejecting the birth certificate, but accepting the secondary document, because that passport, the primary document for that is the birth certificate, it appears to me that there's some flaw in that. You don't agree?
Well, it's for the committee to respond to that.
But what do you think? You are a member of Parliament, but also a politician. You're either going to be a beneficiary or a victim of this particular CI. You must have a position on this.
Earlier on, in the re-registrations that we have done, they've even admitted voters' cards, the former voters' ID cards. Now, in this one, they are saying that they are not allowing that. And the reason they gave to us when they appeared before us, I'm talking about the Special Budget Committee, was that some people had
secured fraudulently, foreigners, etc., or have their cards, etc.
Not really.
The voters' card.
Yes, it's not that they secured it fraudulently. I think they related to the procurement of the card using driver's license. And driver's license had been ruled against its usage. They thought that to the extent that they were not able to patch the list of all of it, those of them who used they didn't want to position themselves at a place where, after they had allowed it, its usage, somebody may come up to say that, well, but why did you allow this, where the Supreme Court had ruled against it? And even if it's maybe 2,000, 20,000 people who used it, it may end up contaminating the whole lot, which is why they said no. Just for the avoidance of doubt, we are not going to use this.
But what about the birth certificate?
Well, when they appeared before us, they said there was a mad rush for people to go for birth certificates. And in a few cases, they discovered that some of them were fraudulent. So to avoid whatever, they said, okay, we're not even going to use the birth certificate.
But you see the flaw in that.
But I'm saying, if a person takes that birth certificate to the passport office, they'll be able to detect that this is not a legitimate one. So It's for them. As I say, I don't want to speak for the EC.
But it
affects
your interests.
It affects the interest of the nation.
But yeah, I get that.
It affects the interest of the nation.
True.
Your interest as well.
It does. But
yes.
in your case, you actually directly will feel it in your constituency if this goes wrong. We
must get it right.
You don't want that addressed in the CI?
Well, I'm saying that if, as a nation, we say that, well, let's look at this well. Would it then mean that the CI will have to be withdrawn for anyone to be brought? The matter is before the Subsidiary Legislation Committee. Let's see what informed recommendations they will submit to us. And that's why I told you that in some instances, we have seen reports from the subsidiary legislation indicate to us that we've looked at this. It is not really entirely flawed, but 1-2 places could have been improved. Going forward, we recommend that once we do this, subsequently, maybe there should be an improvement or there should be an amendment which should occasion another CI. These recommendations come to us. So let's wait for them.
But at least you agree the way it stands now is not a perfect document by any sort of imagination.
No document is perfect.
But in this
no law
case,
that we have made in this country is perfect.
Do you agree that at least there's some flaws that needs second
I'm saying to you that give me one law that we have made in this country that is a perfect document.
Okay, well, you can get perfection.
You won't get perfection anywhere. That is why any law that we have made.
Do you agree that there's a flaw there?
You are making a point.
You don't agree?
I may appear convinced, but not entirely persuaded.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bonsu. Make of that what you will. I'm still trying to make sense of it, but you have a longer time to process what he just said there as the days count for that CI to become law. I'm grateful again that you...
Not everything that is convincing is persuasive.
Okay.
I'm grateful to you. Thank you for having me.
At least I convinced you.
You have not persuaded me yet.
Enjoy the rest of the evening.